Hey guys, my name is Chris Frank and I present you with my new PLO tournament course. So today I'm going to show you one hand from a Triton final table that I was fortunate enough to win, and I'll talk a bit about the hand, what went through my head, and some of the theoretical concepts that I had played. A hand that I thought a lot about afterwards, even during the final table, which probably is not good. I shouldn't really post-analyze the hand during the final table, but I did. So I find myself at my first Triton stop, and I find myself at the final table of the 100K with like whatever 2.2 million up top or something, and I find myself against world-class competition, and they don't have the exact stack sizes here, but the average stack at the time is this. So the average was 3.43 million. That was the average stack at the time. They don't have any graphics here of the average stack. And it's like normal Triton payouts. And we're 6 left. So I start with like 4.3 million at big blind 60K. So like 1.3x average or something. I think I'm tied for first with Laszlo. Dylan seems to have a good stack. Danny Tang has decent stack. And then maybe Tomasz is a bit shorter. Yeah, he has like 25 bigs. And then Laszlo is like around 70 bigs. So we're the two biggest stacks. And I open under the gun with this hand, ace, jack, jack, 5, single suited, non-nut. I pot under the gun. It's already not so clear what to do with this hand. At the time, I was playing a limp and pot strategy for this final table and decided that this is one of the hands that I'm going to raise fold because I have high cards, which is good for raising, blocking the 3-bets, especially the ace, obviously good. And then if you construct raise folding ranges, you kind of like the single suited non-nut specifically, because if you play a 3 or 4 way limp pot, like if you limp, you very often play 3 or 4 way limp pots, right? Because the small blind very often comes along, often the button comes along someone else. So this is the most likely outcome, and then you just want nuttiness in your hands. This is nothing too crazy. So this is a bit how I construct my ranges. And yeah, this is what I did. And then Laszlo is going to defend. So my read on Laszlo, he might be the biggest winner in PLO history, if not one of the biggest. And then it's not like I played too much with him over the years, because usually he's been playing between a little bit and a lot higher than me. So he has a reputation for being like fearless and maybe a bit crazy and very aggressive. So at the time, kind of just going with that, going into the hand. And yeah, it's a good reputation to have, by the way. We will also see that later in the hand. I'm not the greatest live player. This is something I have to get better on, so I'm just like trying to hide myself a little bit. Not sure if he's the guy who like goes for live reads in a big way, probably not, but it just helps me to feel a bit more comfortable, because I want to be in a position where it's like comfortable to fire big bluffs. So I'm already preparing myself for that in a way. And then the flop comes and he's gonna check, and then in ICM spots, it's quite interesting with c-betting. So if we were a lot shallower, like let's say we have 1.5 million, 2 million, 1.5 million or something like that. So let's say we have an SPR, but stack pot ratio between 2 to 4. I would maybe check a lot more, because now the risk of getting check raised is just so big. And most hands don't want to get check raised. And one thing so if you think about PLO theory, in general, you're just betting a polarized range here, right? So you bet hands with nutty runouts, which can include hands that just need bricks, like pocket 10s, pocket kings, just building a pot with a good mate hand, or with nutty draws, so You got all kinds of straight draws, reps here, and obviously the strong flush draws. Most importantly, obviously the nut flush draw. So you build a pot with hands of all, like straight could be nuts on the river, flush could be nuts, or just full house, or even kings instead of the kings could be the nuts on the river. So with all these hand classes, straight draws, flush draws, and 2-pair set, you build the pot, and then for every possible run out, you're covered. So now in an ICM spot, if you have a good flush draw, a good rep, you don't want to be check raised off your equity. And in a cash game or with no ICM, you could just bet and call the check raise, right? But in ICM spot, you can't really do this anymore because you can't just call off your stack in a marginal spot where you have a close pot odds call, which you would usually do. So because now you can't bet your flush draws and your straight draws anymore as nicely, also you get in trouble betting because you also don't just want to bet 2-pair and set because it's just gonna be devalued on so many runouts. So I think for those reasons, you would be very passive here if you have a lot less. But I think this deep, I can just bet a lot because we both have such deep stacks that he can't just raise that much. I can easily just have kings. So I can still bet all kinds of draws and mate hands, and obviously I can bet air. And in terms of air c-bets, this seems like a pretty good one, right? I have 2 jacks, and jacks is a very nice straight draw blocker here. It's the main straight connectivity on this spot, or straight draw connectivity on this spot goes through the jack. The strong open-enders, queen jack and jack 9, the strong reps, ace queen jack 9, all need the jack. I have the very nice jack of hearts. And then the ace is probably not amazing, but not super bad. And then just one bad card. So I have a pocket pair. I have a nut gutter, but this is a hand strength that can bet fold on the spot. So it seems like a reasonable betting candidate. And sizing wise, decided to go half pot. I don't want to go too big here in a chip EV situation. I might go bigger, but I don't want to grow the pot as much, so half pot I think makes sense here. Maybe you bet even smaller in theory. This stuff is still all like not really solved. We don't really know, so this is just what I'm thinking about, and we don't really know how exactly ICM works here post flop, and especially also some future game. The stuff is too complicated for current programs to solve perfectly. And then we got the ace here, and then he's gonna check to me, and I feel like I just have to bet this card because I block the current nuts now with 2 jacks, and also blocking an ace is pretty good here because if he calls the flop with a hand containing an ace, he's usually gonna call again, because if he called with a king and has an ace, I mean, has top 2 plus maybe something else. He's likely calling. If he has, I mean, nut flush draw, he's probably calling the turn again because he has top pair nut flush draw. Yeah, I mean, he might fold some ace jack 9, but that's extremely unlikely because I hold jack jack. And he could have ace queen jack or something. So if he has an ace in his hand, he's likely continuing the turn. So I have an ace as well. So I think I just have a barrel here. And the thing that went through my mind and that led to me potentially making a big mistake here, it's very tough to say if I made a big mistake in this hand or not, but so we're both very deep stacks at this point, and I bet the turn here for big sizing, make the normal blocker, turn double barrel. I think from almost everyone here, it won't be like sick or surprising or anything like that play, but yeah, I did. And then now I find myself on the river, and we are both very big stacks. So the way that ICM works here is that we both have something against each other, which you call risk premium, which means that additionally to your pot odds, you need more equity to call, because the chips you win are worth less than the chips you lose. So let's say I pot here, Laszlo gets 2-1, right? But he probably needs to win like 2-1, 33.3%. He might have to win like 40%, 41% here. It might be even more, maybe it's 43% or something like that. And then I should also adjust my range in a way like this, in theory. So for chips, it should be 2-to-1 approximately value. If I pot the river for chip EV, just playing for chips or for dollar in a cash game or early in a tournament, I should have 2 value for 1 bluff, potting the river, and then here my ratio should be a bit different because he's kind of getting a worse price, or he is getting a worse price if he's following ICM. And then at the same time, there's other things going on. I don't know to which degree my opponent is aware of this, because just because he's one of the biggest winning players in PLO of all time, doesn't mean he thinks about ICM the same way. Maybe he never heard that, or maybe he heard something like that and just doesn't agree with it, because this stuff is disputed a bit between great players because their future game arguments and ICM is not perfect. So you find players like Bonomo or Ike, they have their take on ICM, which might not completely agree with what I just said. So it's a bit unclear how he thinks about this. And then it's a spot where it might be kind of easy to overbluff, because I can have a lot of ace jack jack, ace queen queen type of hands that I raise pre and they make good c bets, and I could triple them off, while a lot of my queen jack might pot control the flop. So I thought maybe he thinks about that. And then also it's a very high pressure situation. Obviously the hand that started pretty deep, started pretty innocent, we have a nice raising hand, we have a nice c bet, and suddenly if we pot, we're playing for almost our entire stack. So it's easy to be biased in a spot like this and only think about the arguments against betting. So in this case, I ended up checking a river in a spot where I would think we're probably supposed to bluff in theory, because we do have 2 jacks blocking queen jack, and we do have, there's 2 possible flush draws. We only have one card of them. We don't have more clubs, we don't have more hearts in our hand. So I think it's a hand that we have to bluff in theory. It might exploitively be fine, because there's a chance he calls more than raw ICM dictates. It's very, very tough to say. We will never know. And yeah, I kept thinking about the hand because, for example, if I make a bad river check here, and the real reason I did this check is just because I was scared and didn't want to bluff off a big final table, that would obviously be a big problem, right? So this, you can study as much theory as you want. If you make mistakes like that based on emotions like fear, you have a big problem. So yeah. And then I got very lucky in this hand that he just had a bricked double flush draw. Yeah, this is a point. I didn't really think about my showdown value in game, but I think it should be extremely low. I think my hand should show down for a very small fraction of the pot. What do I beat? I beat very few ace-x of hearts hands, but it seems like really little, because he can't have a second pair, he can't even have a queen in it. And then, yeah, I guess tiny bit of double flush draws, but my hand probably checks down for, I would estimate, like 3 to 6% of the pot. So my checking EV really isn't that high. But yeah, that was a pretty interesting hand, and fortunately I had the best hand here. And after I won that hand, I was pretty substantial chip leader and just had a very lucky run of cards, I would say. So I think I made decent plays, but people also held the cards they have to hold in the situations I was with them, and I had good bluffing hands or good value betting hands. It just went in a smooth way. Like sometimes you play final tables and you don't win a hand, everything goes against you. But this time things just went really smooth for me. And yeah, so this was the hand definitely I thought most about after the final table, because besides heads up we didn't play for that much anymore because we made a deal, Dylan Weissman, great player, and me. And there was only one questionable hero call heads up, but this is for a small pot. And yeah, so this was by far the most interesting hand of the final table, and one where I'm still to this day not really sure if I misplayed it or not. But yeah, I just wanted to go a bit over this hand and talk about some of the things that are going on here, and hopefully get you excited for the course, that is where you can expect hand analysis like this and a lot more. Thank you very much for listening, guys.